It's 1975, and one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time, Arnold Schwarzenegger, is seen smoking marijuana straight after winning 6 Mr. Olympia titles. Later, he admitted that he smoked marijuana in the 70s. But the question arises as to how it is possible for a person who is so good at bodybuilding to start using a substance that is stereotypically associated with making people fat and lazy. As efforts to legalize marijuana have increased in some countries, and many US states have allowed the recreational use of this substance, most people wonder how it affects their weight and percentage of fat and muscle mass if they give this substance. And now I'm here to do an unbiased review of marijuana and how exactly it can help you lose fat or build muscle. How much is the damage? Don't forget to subscribe before starting.
I wake up every minute with the fever dreams. I push my mind to a limit where it needs to be. I work blind, got vision I don't need to see. I'm picking mind over matter, I believe in me. I need to find more hours in the day to breathe. Need to find more power in the way I be. And when my mind turns sour with the painful scenes, I need to scream.
First, I must make you understand that marijuana is not illegal because of its harmful effects, but because it was created to suppress certain minority groups and eliminate competition between the lumber industry and the hemp industry. If you don't know, hemp is a plant that grows marijuana. We can use hemp to make everything that we use wood. It could be used, and artificial hemp was lighter, cheaper, and stronger than wood. That's why it was such a serious threat. A bad name threat was made against Marie Junan, which was finally recognized as a crime. Since then, this evil substance has been used occasionally in medical applications. For example, it is now used to treat cancer patients to help relieve nausea and pain and to deal with lack of appetite. There are also studies that show that marijuana can reduce the growth of tumors such as pancreatic cancer cells. For example, with a closer look, we realize that marijuana contains a chemical called THC, which is responsible for most of its physiological effects and causes a sharp increase in appetite and obesity. Another one of the main cannabinoids is known as CBD, which is valuable for controlling epilepsy and other neurological disorders. And there is evidence that shows that it can even be effective in reducing inflammation. But when you smoke, you definitely got a party in your butt because you see that this substance has some medical benefits. Many doctors and researchers still consider marijuana seriously harmful to health. For example, researchers have found that smoking 3 to 4 cannabis lines a day can lead to respiratory risks and is equivalent to someone who smokes 20 cigarettes a day. Of course, there are many studies that do not confirm this view about marijuana being as bad as tobacco. Some studies have shown that marijuana can even improve lung power and lung capacity. So let's accept that this is a very controversial issue, and we don't have a definitive answer until people can freely test and research it. Despite what I have said so far, this fact does not change that some athletes use it, and many of them insist that it has increased their performance. For example, a study of French student athletes showed that 17.8% of women and almost 40% of men used cannabis more than 10 times a day. This may be related to the fact that many athletes often claim that this substance increases concentration, and some others claim that it has a calming effect that helps reduce their stress. It may help you heal, but marijuana is a vasodilator, which means it can widen your arteries and improve blood flow, thus helping to reduce pain. There is also a common belief among runners that smoking marijuana before running helps to increase the runner's vitality and makes him feel euphoric. This experience is due to the release of endorphins, however. Recent research has shown that endorphins may not be able to reach the brain. Therefore, endocannabinoids are probably the mechanism that leads to a runner's high, and maybe that's why marijuana enhances its effect. But you should know that marijuana increases the risk of injury when lifting heavy weights. Of course, this completely depends on your tolerance dose, but there are many studies that THC can significantly reduce many of your performance measures, such as balance and reaction speed and psychomotor performance. Unfortunately, there are no direct studies on the effect of marijuana on muscle growth, but there are some studies that show that the THC in marijuana can interfere with testosterone production. One study showed that testosterone levels in men who used marijuana at least 4 days a week were 56% lower than those who did not use it. But again, good news for those who smoke is that even if most studies show a decrease in testosterone, some studies show that the effect of this story is not that significant. Even one study showed that there was no change in the test level compared to the first day. And even if your testosterone level decreases, these effects are definitely not permanent, and the testosterone level returns to normal after 24 hours of not smoking marijuana. Of course, other than testosterone, some other hormones may also be affected. For example, research has shown that smoking marijuana for about 14 days leads to a 3 times lower growth hormone production. And again, this doesn't directly mean that you can't build muscle, because researchers are doing more research and finding that even if you experience a decrease in growth hormone, this decrease may not harm muscle growth, because the effects are dose-dependent and rapidly reversible. It is likely to reduce muscle growth for smokers due to higher consumption. It's similar to what I said earlier, where even if you smoke heavily, if you have a high tolerance, your performance may not be impaired too much, and you may not experience such negative effects with your cognitive coordination and output. The most definitive positive thing you can say about marijuana for muscle growth is that it increases appetite, which can help you eat more food. This can be helpful for certain people who are trying to gain weight by eating more, and some people who are severely anorexic. In fact, one study found that smoking marijuana increased total daily caloric intake by 40%, which is a lot, but unfortunately this was mostly due to snacks like chips and ice cream and the like. In fact, it helps you build fat more than muscle. If you're trying to lose weight and you're restricting your calorie intake, then you're hungry and you're trying to resist cravings. And so when you're high, you think you're more likely to binge. But the interesting thing is that it seems like it is much more likely that you will be negatively affected by fat loss. I know it may not make sense, but studies looking at chronic marijuana users show a negative relationship between body weight and the amount of marijuana used. In other words, the more overweight a person is, the less likely he is to use marijuana. And a survey of about 50,000 people confirmed these results, even after adjusting for factors such as age, sex, and tobacco use. And surprisingly, people who used marijuana 3 times a week were 40% less likely to be obese. And surprisingly, people who used marijuana 3 times a week were 40% less likely to be obese. This is probably because using it from time to time can increase your appetite and lead to overeating, because you are not used to the effects of the drug on your appetite. Meanwhile, chronic use can lead to a higher degree of tolerance to THC, which reduces its effect on appetite. And with the fact that marijuana use increases your heart rate, you can gain weight as a result of its continued use. Reduce your body weight. Many bodybuilders use marijuana to relieve fatigue because, unlike alcohol, it has no calories. And there are clearly many people who can control their appetite. So with all that said, it doesn't seem like we can definitively say right now that marijuana prevents or slows down muscle growth. And if it helps you increase your appetite and burn calories, increase your need, then increase it. If you like this video, be sure to like it, subscribe us, and send the video to your friends. Thank you for being with us.